Alrighty, hello everybody, this is Kirsho here. Now, whenever I last left off, I did say that we have Deku, Bakugo, Momo, Aoyama, Mei, and Uraka, along with Asui. They are all on a ship to LV-426. Now, this is where we are going to be picking up. Let's begin. Deku and everyone is just sitting down as they are all waiting. Deku is going over his gauntlets and actually inspecting them and actually looking at them. Mei is actually really intrigued as she's actually asking Deku about these things. As Deku, he's just explaining exactly how they work. Mei would actually ask if she can at least look at them, because she thinks that she can at least make the blades dispense faster. Deku's a bit confused by this, but she would just say trust her. She's pretty sure that's what the Yoja actually took her. She has a very good understanding of Earth's technology, and in fact she actually has made a little bit of improvements to their tech. If not, little dangerous ones. Dangerous? Well, I mean, they usually like to keep things at a slower pace, but I prefer things faster and quicker. If it's faster, then that means you can get it done in a small amount of time. Along with that, they actually have had me within a science division. That's why I made these, as she would just pull down a pair of goggles. These things are actually really cool. She would just go over saying that through, one of the scientists teaching her about Predator tech, if not the Yaojai tech, she's been able to somewhat reverse engineer them. But they're, her own design. But it's a bit too bad. Well, at least we'll be able to use the mask. As she would just hold up a Predator face mask. And this is whenever everyone would just go over saying that they'll at least use them properly. The atmosphere on the planet is too bad. But the respirator will be perfect. It'll be able to, filter out anything they need and cycle it through, allowing them to properly breathe. Now, with that being said, this is whenever they're being briefed, if not going over, I believe I already said that, but they're going over everything once again. Now, everyone would finally land on the planet, as they all slap on their mask and walk outside. Deku, he's immediately on guard as he would just take out his knife, and he actually is walking around, as he begins using the mask and actually starting to scan things around. He would find that there's no life on the planet so far, but he at least has his mask set to read, so that he can at least pick up live targets. Now, he would turn around and he would just explain everything. They can't go home until they have the head of a xenomorph. And apparently there's still one left on this planet. With that, this is going to be our biggest challenge and difficulty. So, let's at least make the Yaojai proud. As Deku would just hold up his arm and immediately just begin shaking it. As everyone would do the same, and I want to say they would split up, but they would exactly know how dangerous the xenomorphs are. So they would all stick together. Now, eventually, I want to say, after walking around the planet, they do find evidence of xenomorphs, along with the fact that they do come across the engineer. Now, this area, they actually do split up and get investigating it as they're trying to look and scavenge some extra tech. As if they can at least bring that back something of value, along with the trophy, they believe that the Yaoja might actually be a bit more impressed. So they are looking around. Now, eventually, Ayama, he would find the stasis field, and he is looking down, seeing a xenomorph egg. This one is unhatched, but, well, I think you all know where this is going. Now, Ayama would step closer, actually investigating it, as he's a bit confused. As he finally does switch over his mask to thermal, he actually does see what's going on, as it's already too late. The egg has already opened, and the xenomorph has already burnt through his mask, getting him in the face. Now then, as that happens, everyone would hear this commotion as they come running over. Deku, he would just immediately see Ayama laying on the ground, trying to fight with this facehugger. If not, at least try and tear it off his face before he passes out. After that, everyone's just watching as Deku, he would just unholster his knife, bringing it up, stabbing it directly into the not xenomorph, but stabbing it directly into the facehugger, as the acid burns away at Ayama, killing him. Sounds messed up, but, well, he's not the strongest in the group. Now, with that, Deku, he would just take a sigh as he pulls his knife out. And everyone would just be a bit sad for a second. They would take a minute to mourn their fallen companion, but then they would get back to the hunt. They would just begin by looking around, and eventually they would find, if not see, xenomorphs running on the surface. These ones are a bit more active. In fact, they are looking around. Now, whenever they see the xenomorphs, they would immediately begin by having Mei. She would just use her quirk to zoom in. As she's looking, she actually does see that one of them is acting a bit different, as she can see it occasionally look, if not turn its head a bit to the right, actually basically making a signal to someone. She would immediately say that they should fall back a bit because it seems like they know they're here. Deku, he would just say that that's perfect then. We can at least try luring them into a trap. As they all look at Deku once again. Through the fog, they're realizing that Deku's actually kind of adapting a bit, as his skin does look a bit more, well, dark and camouflaged, basically allowing him to blend into the darkness. As one of them looks closer, they actually do see that underneath Deku's wrist blades, he actually might be creating a pair of claws. If not, he's adapting to the environment more. With that, they would all begin by Bakugo just saying that that's not a good idea. They should at least try and take those two down while they're still here. If they can alert their hive, then that would be very bad. Bakugo, I don't think you remember how this goes. Don't you remember the briefing? They're a hive mind. If they know we're here, everyone knows we're here. Might as well ring the dinner bell. Now, Deku, he would immediately begin by just taking out his knife, and he actually does somewhat try getting it into aim. As he would bring it backwards, and immediately just bring it forwards, tossing it as fast as he can, immediately running in. As soon as that happens, everyone else will be watching as they begin to throw their own weapons. These are... they're not primitive, but they're not good. I want to say they'd be like iron or a common ore that they found on the planets. But they're not Yaojai tech. Or the metal they use. This is just basic swords, spears, or whatever they can find. Now, everyone is rushing in as the xenomorph would immediately get hit in the side of the head, slamming over to the ground. As Deku, he's running into fights. I want to say Bakugo would come in, actually stabbing into the side of the xenomorph and pulling his hand out, as he would see the green blood and immediately somewhat feel it starting to burn through his gear. He would just immediately slip off his glove as he actually just tossed it to the ground. Finding that it actually burned through it, he would just immediately warn everyone, saying that they got acid, if not to stay back from their blood. Now, as soon as that happens, the xenomorph Deku threw his knife into, he would immediately run over and try cutting off its head with his wrist blades. As soon as he deploys them and goes to swing them, the xenomorph does try coming up, stabbing its tail into Deku's arm. The xenomorph would do that, and Deku, he immediately begins to adapt to it as his joint immediately just extends outward, and he's able to actually grab the xenomorph's tail, pulling it straight through. As he's pulling the xenomorph closer to him, he actually does slash off its head, killing it. As soon as that happens, Deku immediately begins to push its body back through, slipping off of it. And he immediately just begins to do one thing. He goes over, putting his hand over the acid as he actually does start to dip one of his fingers in. He feels it burn as he actually does begin to adapt to it, bringing his hand up, sliding it across his body, if not his chest, forcing his body to adapt to this to survive. As soon as that happens, he immediately runs over to the other one, stabbing his blades into its back, and Bakugo comes in, slashing at its face, and he actually just starts exploding. I want to say, May, considering the fact that she is a bit more tech savvy, and she would at least hold up an experimental thing. I want to say this isn't a firearm, but it's like a mini crossbow that she's been working on. She would just tell them to get back or to back away from it as she would hold it up, firing it straight into the xenomorph's mouth. They aren't really sure what that was until they immediately hear one thing. A small beep. As soon as that happens, Deku would just immediately tackle Bakugo to the ground as he actually does somewhat throw him off the facing they're on, if not off the hill. As soon as that happens, the xenomorph's head immediately just blows as the acid begins to spray everywhere. Some of it immediately covers Deku's back as he does essentially he does writhe back in pain, but before he can even scream, someone slaps their hand over his mouth, holding it closed. As Deku's just, standing there with acid burns covering him. He begins to heal and actually start adapting to this pain, if not at least forming a hardened layer of skin over the injury. Now then, as soon as that happens, they do walk over and pick up the xenomorph head. As Deku begins, he would just put away his wrist blades as he picks up his knife. He actually does turn to Mei, saying that that was pretty good. That is your kill and that is mine. Now, everyone else must get at least one kill. But since Aoyama is dead, we will have to make up his own, to at least show that we do not slack down or slack off. Now, with that, everyone begins looking around a bit more. As Deku, he actually does, I want to say he does take off one of the platings from the xenomorph and actually does put it underneath its head, so that he can at least carry it around. Basically, so the acid doesn't drip through or burn through anything. He also would. I don't know why I can see him pulling off its tail and at least carrying it around, considering that it's an acid-proof weapon. Now, I want to say Bakugo, he would have actually taken the tail from Deku, since he did offer it up. Now, with that, Deku, they all began to run around the planet for a little bit. Momo, she actually does try creating different forms of weaponry. If not, she would actually start asking about the wrist gauntlet. But Deku, knowing that he can't tell her, because of her quirk specifically, does barely give her any information. He basically just gives up the specifics that it's this metal, but she does not know how to create it. Since they purposely do not let her allow her to learn that technology yet. They only teach her other workarounds, like human tech. Now, I want to say she would at least be talking with May, as she would try making one of those. Now they're all walking around even more, as eventually they do find three more, xenomorphs, as they begin to fight against these ones. I want to say Sue would actually get her kill here, along with Bakugo. Bakugo using this tail Deku gave him to actually stab it into the side of a Xenomorph's head, and then immediately just use an explosion to force the tail deeper, killing it. Sue, I want to say she would use her tongue to at least fling a weapon overhead, chopping off part of, the back of one's elongated head. With that, you only have Momo and Uraka who need to get their kills. Now then, with that being said, ow. With that being said, everyone is, taking their trophies and walking around. Someone needs to make a Bayama's kill, and this is whenever Deku would see a Xenomorph just staring at them from a distance. As Deku, he's looking a bit closer, he would just see that the Xenomorph is immediately screeching. Now, as soon as that happens, Deku would just signal to everyone that they might have to, evacuate for a second. Everyone would just say no as they turn around and see exactly what Deku's looking at. A Xenomorph is charging straight for them, along with the fact that behind him may be a couple hundred Xenomorph. Now, as soon as that happens, Deku, he immediately just says that they need to go, as they all take off running. They're running away as... Uraka, I want to say she would just start telling people to make themselves lighter, if not to lighten their load. She'd just be running around, tapping on different people's backpacks and gear to essentially make them lighter to run. Eventually, she would have to actually get onto the ship. She would get on, and this is whenever a Xenomorph would tackle Deku, and Bakugo, he would have taken it down. But as soon as that happened, another one tackled Momo. As Deku, he'd be running over, slashing at its head, taking it clean off. And he would immediately just toss his head over to the ship. He would just immediately be holding onto this as he would drop it down and begin to fight some other ones, as he starts trying to hold off if not protect people. With that, everyone's getting onto the ship as he would be trying to help May, as May, he immediately just forces his body into the Xenomorph as he pushes it over. The ship begins to hover and get into the process of coming off the ground as Deku, he just grabs Momo, throws her up there, and throws her into the ship, as he actually does get, attacked again. More Xenomorphs are starting to try and overwhelm Deku, as he begins just telling May to run, because essentially this hunt may be coming to an end. Now, this is whenever Deku, he would just immediately be met with a loud sound as a Xenomorph in front of him has a hole in its head, as he just tosses it to the ground, pushing it. He looks to see that May actually does have a different gun, if not a different weapon, as Deku, he immediately just begins by grabbing her and throwing her upwards. This is whenever Momo, she's holding her hand out of the ship, and she would actually grab onto May, as people are looking at Deku. Deku, he just immediately just begins running as the ship is moving forward. As soon as that happens, he picks up the heads that they all have as he's, going as fast as he can. He tries leaping up into the air, but he can't even grab onto the ship. As eventually, whenever they are about at a end of the road, Deku actually does come to the ground as far as he can and jump up as high as possible. Actually, at least stabbing, if not getting into, well, two of his claws onto the ship, as he's just hanging out of the cargo bay. Now, Bakugo, he would actually just hold his hand out to Deku, as Deku, he just swings the heads over, giving him over to Bakugo. As he does that, he would immediately just put his claw, well, his other hands, if not claws, onto the cargo hold as he does climb on. And they all do get, well, their kills. With that being said, only two of these people, well, I want to say Uraka and Momo, they are still unblooded. And Deku at least knows they got more kills than they should have. But this is not where they are going home. They would go onto the other side of the planet and get Momo and Uraka their kills. As they do so, Deku, he just immediately just looks over as he sees Momo and Mei. Momo's a bit confused as she's looking at these blueprints Mei is talking about, as she does hold up the thing she used to help Deku. Deku's still looking at this as he does walk over and start asking questions about that. She would just say that this is a bit, well, it's a bit odd. One of the scientists showed her, well, a plasma caster. That Yaoja tech? Well, yeah. It's, this is, a prototype I have. Prototype? Yeah, I've been trying to make a refined form of one. So, a plasma gun. Well, I mean, technically yes, but I at least want to keep the design of the caster. Well, I can tell. How did you make that? Well, a broken one, and a little bit of modifications. I see. As they would finally arrive, dropping off Momo and Mei. Deku, he is just standing outside, as he would say if he needs to, he will interfere. They are not losing another person. As Uraka, she would just be walking around with Momo. Deku still has them in full view, as he does just stay hidden. He's just watching as these two begin to talk, as they would come across a xenomorph. I don't know if xenomorphs sleep, I don't believe they do, but I want to say this one's at least hibernating. As these two are looking at this. Momo, she... No, like I was going to say beforehand, before I got interrupted. Momo, she would immediately bring her sword up as she would just slam it down. And as soon as she slams it down, there is no sound. In fact, the xenomorph is left completely silent. They're a bit confused, as these two would walk around, saying that the xenomorph is already dead. And in fact, there are holes in its, well, abdomen, indicating a wrist blade. Now, as soon as these two see that, they immediately hear something behind them, as these two would turn around and they would immediately reveal their weapons, as there is a Yaoja standing in front of them. The Yaoja just looks a bit puzzled and confused, as it actually does try bringing its commuter up to, well, talk to them. As soon as these two see this, they immediately just take off running. As the Yaoja, he's just left standing there. He's trying to turn on his communicator to at least talk to these two, if not translate into English. Because, well, this is a bit abnormal. Humans in space. Not just that, the armor they're wearing and the resemblance to Yaoja isn't very, very well. Now, along with the fact that they are wearing face masks that resemble unblooded, this is a bit weird. Now, as these two are taking off, This is whenever the Yaja would actually just give up on trying to use his communicator, as he would actually just give chase, as these two are running. Now, eventually, the Yaja, he'd have to kill his way through a couple xenomorphs, as he's chasing them down. Eventually, Deku would actually intervene. As soon as Momo and, Uraka run into a cave, they immediately just turn around, bring up their weapons to fight. As Deku, he reveals himself as he stands in front of it. He would just immediately turn around as the Yaja actually sees him. The Yaja sees the mask, he sees Deku's weird skin, and he immediately watches as Deku does reveal his own wrist blades. The Yaja just reveals his own, as he actually does want to face off against Deku, seeing him as a worthy opponent. If not just some scavenger, but a survivor nonetheless. Now, as that happens, this is whenever Deku's ship, it arrives blasting the Yaja away as it gets sent flying, and its mask would fall off. As soon as that happens, Deku, him, Momo, and Uraka would just immediately just pile into it as they would take off flying. Now, as that happens, they immediately get on the ship as they'd all begin taking off their mask. Everyone's immediately just talking and saying, "What the hell?" Shit. That's not good, is it? No, what was that? Why was that guy different? I don't know. Well, he wasn't a bad blood. You don't say. Oh my god. This is going to be different and hard to explain. What do you mean? I'm guessing they didn't want us on this side of the planet for a reason. Well. Fuck. Okay, how many heads do we have? As they've been counting them off. The one May killed, saving Deku, that's good. They have Bakugos, they have Sue's, they have Deku's original, and they have one for Ayama and 2 extras. Now, Deku wouldn't feel good about this, but he would at least know these 2 need a head, if not a trophy to bring back. So he immediately just orders for the ship to go back around the planet. As they would all just stop, Deku would just lead everyone out as they begin to fight against a couple xenomorphs. If not 2 xenomorphs in particular. Deku immediately throwing a knife into one's chest as he runs over, injuring it greatly. Taking down another one, and him and Bakugo would just use their quirks to overwhelm it. Now, he wouldn't kill these 2, but he would leave it to Momo and Uraka, as they would take the heads of these xenomorph, immediately getting into the ship and just leaving as fast as they can. Now, when they return, this is whenever the Yaja are actually surprised. They returned with 2 extra heads, as they are 1 person short, and along with the fact that they were monitoring them and seeing their progress. Deku shows truly intentions of being a bad blood, with the fact that he did not give up his hunt until everyone had a reward. And not just that, he was willing to face off against another predator, which most likely would have ended with his own death. But he was at least willing to defend, if not kill, for his people. Admirable traits for a leader. Now, with that being said, that is where I'm going to be leaving things off of, guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video. And yes, I killed Ayama. But one thing I did have in mind was a xenomorph that won't stop twinkling. Sadly, that will never happen. However, there is a possible future I can see for a xenomorph. Now, that is where I'm leaving things off of, guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.